Okay, we're live.
Welcome, welcome. We're so happy you're joining us on Creating Zola Mondays. It's Monday, April 21st. I can't believe time has flown. We're about, fourth way through the year. But that's okay because we're here to celebrate Zola and creating Zola. And as you know, the Association of Black Psychologists is committed to mental health and wellness, and Zola has to do with love, productivity, and all things good. So, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm Linda James Myers. I am a past president of the Association of Black Psychologists, as well as Elder of Elders Emerita. I'm also a Emerita Professor from Ohio State University in Clinical Psychology and Africana Studies. And joining us are our usual panelists. I will let them introduce themselves.
We can't hear you, Dr. Linder. You're unmuted, but we can't hear you. Uh-oh. Do you have headphones in? No. Technical difficulties. Can I edit your mic settings? Me.
He doesn't appear to be muted, so I'm not really sure. In the
In the
meantime,
meantime,
do you want to
you
go
want
ahead
to
and introduce yourself, William?
Yeah, I can go ahead. My name is William Parham. I'm the crisis coordinator for Sawabona Healing Circles. I'm also a healing circle facilitator, doing circles nationally and also locally. Um,
I thought you was gonna keep going. All right. I am Dr. Jonisha Hickson. I am the Association of Black Psychologists Public Relations, incoming chair for the DC ABSI, and the chair of the National Programming Subcommittee for the Sawabona Healing Circle. So really excited. I'm hoping that Dr. Linder has his mic together. Can you try saying something? Dr. Linder?
think
No, I thought he was frozen.
I
I
think
can't hear.
I can hear you now.
I just heard
Oh, can you hear me now?
yes, we can.
Okay. Well, then if you can hear me now, I'm Harvey Linder. I'm a psychological consultant in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where I'm also the chair of the Cultural Wellness Center, chair of the board of the Cultural Wellness Center, and in ABSI, I'm a past Midwest regional rep and uh, founding member of the Minnesota chapter, and I'm presently a member of the ABSI Ethics Committee.
Very good. Well, welcome, welcome. Some of our um, regular panelists.
Now I can't
Dr.
hear
Robina
Dr.
is out of the
Myers.
country, and
Huh.
so we're happy to have
And she's not muted.
our group together. Today, we want to talk about some of the things that are
Jojo,
on
can
the
you
minds.
hear?
Can you hear me now?
I can't hear
Some of the
anything.
things that are on the
Yeah, I can't hear
minds
anything.
of some of the people who've been attending our Sawabona healing circles. As you know, Sawabona means
Again.
in Isu Zulu, I see you. And what my colleague at the Ohio State University, who was a Zulu professor, said literally what we're saying is, I see the divinity in you when I say, I see you. And that's such a powerful message that we're bringing forth from the land of uh, South Africa, or what they've called South Africa. And so the opportunity to share that in terms of healing circles in our communities where people are in crisis has been a tremendous benefit to the community. As you know, the Association of Black Psychologists is very committed to uplifting uh, mental health of people acknowledging African ancestry. And as the mothers and fathers of all human culture and civilization, we really do want to share our knowledge, wisdom, and understanding that otherwise may not be heard because of the nature of white supremacy as it has always existed in this social context. Having said that, Dr. Jonisha or Dr. Parham, would you like to share some of the things that you've experienced that you hear are of concerns to people as they participate in the healing circles?
Yeah, I think the major thing that's popping out for me right now is that both the leaders and the attendees get like a mutual benefit from the circle. So I'm people. I'm a leader, so I host a circle 3 times a week alongside William and some of our other trained facilitators. And for me, it was kind of like, do I really want to do more work? But it was kind of like me forcing myself to heal, because I know that participating in the circle or even by leading it um, can make me feel grounded. So that's how I've been like making sure I'm forcing myself, right, to take care of myself. Because we always question who heals the healers, and it's like we heal ourselves or we heal each other. So the overall general messaging that I'm getting is that people are burnt out, stressed, feeling hopelessness, but that our Salabona healing circles, sitting in community rooted in African centered traditions, are helpful to grounding some of them and reminding people to be where their feet are planted. I don't know. What have you been noticing, William?
I'd say that one of the biggest things to me is it doesn't matter the size of the circle, the impact that it has on folks, including the facilitators and myself, um, is immense in terms of regrounding the spirit in culturally relative practices. I do some work outside with communities that are not that are not related to healing circles, and I do not have the same feeling of my cup being filled that I do leaving the circles. One of the biggest things that I have been kind of encountering in the circles is this like guilt that's being put on us by white people for not wanting to participate in these protests that are going on right now. Um, that has been one of the biggest things of just folks folks feeling like they're being called into this fight that maybe is not our fight or our battle.
That's interesting. And in some ways, I see that that's historically, as you know, we as non-immigrant Africans in America have always led this nation toward creating a democracy. We've always been the one hosed, had dogs sicked on us, beaten, and that's how we got civil rights. But irrespective of all that we suffered and all that we endured in order to get all of Americans equal rights under the law, we ended up at the bottom still. So we see the chief benefactors of affirmative action were white women who were the mothers, wives, daughters, nieces of the same white men that are often assigned the responsibility of propagating white supremacy. But in actuality, it's both. The men wouldn't be able to behave so badly if there wasn't someone else. So what do they say? The hand that rocks the cradle. So here we are. Now we're at a time in history where white supremacy is no longer hiding. It's in your face, and it's taking away civil rights for everybody. Because as has been repeated, if they're going to arrest people who are legally demonstrating and protesting against the genocide of the Palestinian people and lock them up and send them out of the country today, as Angela Davis used to say, they'll come for you in the morning. So we all need to be mindful. We need to be awake and astute. And ultimately, it's time for those people who benefited or who supported the current leadership to take a stand. And they need to be taking a stand and standing up. Not to say that everyone shouldn't be taking a stand for what is right. They should. Indeed, that's what's led us as people acknowledging African ancestry, particularly non-immigrant Africans in America. That's what's led us to take the moral and spiritual leadership of this nation in the right direction. However, it is now 2025. We have a person in office who is dismantling all human rights, all civil rights, the Constitution, and it's time for everyone to be out there and protest. But there are many ways to protest. There are many, many ways to protest. And at this juncture, I think it's reasonable for non immigrant Africans in America And by non-immigrant Africans in America, I mean those of us who are here not because we migrated or immigrated, but because we were kidnapped and trafficked. Um, it's certainly time for us to kind of step back and take a look at what's been going on over these past centuries and see, after all that sacrifice, is this what we got? Is this what we fought for? I don't think so. It's quite the opposite. And therefore, might be time for us to take a stand and fight in a way that's different than we have in the past. It seems like a reasonable solution to me.
Fighting is not the only way. Uh, we're we call this creating Zola Monday, and creating Zola is creating that peace and love and connection between people. There are more ways to fight against evil than to take up arms against it. And I think that we have to keep that in mind that, yes, there's a role for people who want and need to get out there in the street and hold up signs and say, we're mad as hell and we're not going to take it anymore. Uh, but also, there are other ways, as Dr. Myers suggests, there are other ways to contribute to creating the kind of world that we want to create. And it doesn't always mean taking up arms against the things that you oppose.
Not sure. I think the brand of activism that I'm seeing right now, mostly, and I love it because I think it speaks to like that consciousness raising that we're always talking about, right? That optimal consciousness that you talk about, Nana Linda. I think that I'm seeing a lot of us focused on joy and focused on instead of let's protest them or trying to erase our culture like they've been doing, and let's just continue to build that culture and make sure that we have ways to pass that down, whether that's oral tradition or our own filmmaking. Like right now, the movie Sinners is really big right now, and it does. I just saw it yesterday. It was so good, or the day before, and it does a great job of talking about the um, the music culture of Black folks, the folks in the Bible Belt in Mississippi, and then it also has some horror in it, the horrors of things like creatures, right, monsters, but also racism. So it just does a really great job. So I'm seeing a lot of line dancing, and grills are making a big comeback. I think I'm gonna put mine on right now because I just felt so happy after leaving that theater. It was such a good movie. But I love that for Black people because it's like instead of talking about the problem, which we know exists, let's focus on the solution, which looks like cultivating that Zola, cultivating that joy, passing that down, and like being reminded that what you always say, Nana Linda, right? We don't only have intergenerational trauma, but we have intergenerational triumph and joy and all these things that can fortify us for all the madness that doesn't belong to us. So I love that for us.
And that movie Sinners is an amazing example of the type of resistance that we as a people can engage in. So Ryan Coogler, the writer and director of that movie, a lot of studios passed on that movie because of the contract that he wanted for it. He wanted to have ownership after 25 years. That is something studios don't do. And the studio system now is afraid that this is going to topple the studio system because of the deal that he was able to engineer for this movie that killed it at the box offices, $45 million in its first weekend. And so it isn't a testament to Black excellence, but also the need for us to seek ownership in the things that we do. And that act is possibly going to change studio dynamics with the ways that they engage with all creators.
That's what we like to see. We need substantive change, and we need to begin to define reality for ourselves and create that which we desire, as opposed to spending a whole lot of time trying to change people to do the right thing when after 500 years they haven't done it. Pretty much what we see is a shift in policies, maybe, which is a written document that says, well, now we believe this, when indeed nothing has changed. I'm old enough to remember being part of those young people who fought for Black studies, Africana studies. And oh boy, we were so happy, and we got the departments and programs and whatever. And 50 years later, they had set it up. So yeah, you can have it for 50 years, but we're going to control it the whole while. And not only control the law, after 50 years or so, it's going to be so diminished and worthless, we won't care. In fact, we'll probably get them to, the Black studies scholars may be teaching more white studies than the white studies scholars. So I am so happy to hear that people are suggesting we are beyond that phase, because it's a new time, it's a new age, it's a new era, and it's certainly a time for us to begin to take our power back and define reality for ourselves.
Yeah, I think that's been helping me personally as well to not succumb to the despair because it's a lot like if you really stay tuned into that 24-hour news cycle, it is so much to like, it's so easy to be like, we are like the world is going to shit. Like we are going down. This is a sinking shit. But then when you have an African centered consciousness, it's like, regardless of what's going on, I am light. I'm literally made of light. I can maximize that light. I can share that light. I can dispel that darkness with that light. And you have, continued hope, just a wellspring of hope within you. At least that's my like process right now, if you will. And I'm like, I can't fold because if I fall into that despair, how am I going to be able to show up for my babies? I work with Black scholars. Like we have to prepare them a little bit differently than we would have in the past, because they are coming at us in every way, shape, or form. And, we have more technological advances with AI and robots and all this stuff. So it's just scary times.
And I look at the success of Ryan, and I look at the success of Kendrick Lamar's stadium tour right now, right? This Black excellence. And these are people who own the means of production. They own they own their music, they own their art, and are able to are capitalizing on it in this nation at an unprecedented rate. And so I try to hold on to those forms of resistance to the system. Even I find like joy in the fact that Target's foot traffic is down by 40% right now because of a Black-led boycott. And that is a protest. And to me, in a capitalist nation, money is the lever that speaks to people. And now all of a sudden you see Target's CEO saying, "Oh, okay, I'm gonna go meet with the Reverend Al Sharpton," and Pepsi like, "Oh, we're gonna go meet with the Reverend Al Sharpton."
I think that is.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Anna.
No, I was going to kind of shift the subject, so you go ahead.
I was gonna say really quickly to that end, William, with like Target and stuff. I live in an apartment in DC, and right across the street they just built an Aldi. And I was like, yes, like Aldi has cheap groceries. Their groceries are really usually good quality. And then down the block I have a Walmart. Usually get my groceries from there, but they took away their DEI. So I'm like, I'm not giving y'all my money. Like I don't want to. And it makes me feel so empowered and it makes me feel connected to something bigger than myself. And thinking about right in the 60s during the height of the civil rights movements, all the signages that said don't buy where you can't work or don't buy where you, something like that. And I'm just like thinking those things. And I'm like, maybe I'm having the memories of my ancestors, but they can't get my money. Like they're gonna have to pry it from my hands, my dead hands. But it feels empowering to actualize Ujamaa, right? Collective economics.
I think that's so important. And in a capitalistic system, you show your allegiance by where you spend your money, where you put your money. And I so am inspired to hear that we're now learning to put our money with people who are going to have our best interest at heart. I think that one of the biggest challenges is, say, if we put our money in the Black movie or the Black artist who's making his own, are they going to put the money back in the Black community and begin to sponsor mental health programs and other things that we in our community need? That's so important because capitalism is problematic on its face unless it's a capitalism driven toward not that pyramid that has been talked about, but rather a capitalism where free enterprise can be allowing people who have something to market that other people need to be rightfully paid for their offerings, and then put that money back into the community of the people who support them. So hopefully that consciousness is shifting at a level deep enough so that we're not just aspiring to get our piece of the pie, which is actually toxic and poison.
I think it's important um, for us to keep pressure on these folks who are able to who are having success because of our community to come back into the community and give back, and also lift up artists, filmmakers that look like them, that share their same experience. So I'm hopeful that that will happen.
Yeah, I think you mentioned a really key point, which is this idea of sustainability. I remember when, right, social media was a buzz with the whole like blackout day, like we're not shop all black people, we're not giving our money to these companies on this day. And you had some people, non-black and black alike, who were like, what is one day of protesting gonna do? Like y'all not gonna do anything. It was just so like discouraging. And I saw people like, again, the civil rights movement, the Black Power movement, this was all built on one step forward, and then you organize to make sure that those things are sustainable. They made sure people had transportation. They made sure people could find groceries, right? If we're not in food deserts and things like that. But I think to be so so critical, but not be offering solutions or not being encouraging, this, even if it's a small step during towards self determination, is just really like, I don't know. I didn't like seeing comments like that. Right? Like, what is one day of protesting going to do? Well, drop their foot traffic down. They lost billions of dollars. So change begins with a step like
Sends a
community.
message. It sends a message. But the message, we have to make sure that the message doesn't become that it's all about the money, because it isn't all about the money. It's all about trying to bring about the kind of change that needs to come about. And money is not a bad thing, but we just have to remember that money is not the only thing. That money can't become the goal in itself. Uh, I
So
think I
true.
mentioned once before, that we have the saying at the Cultural Wellness Center that we have to switch replace the profit motive with a profit motive. And that is, we have to be, keep in mind what is the change that we're seeking, and what's the change we're striving for. And oftentimes most of the time, that change goes much beyond what's happening now. We have to focus on what needs to happen in the future, and how do we put the pieces in place now to bring about those changes that we want to have come about in the future.
absolutely true. Absolutely true. I think that that brings to mind to me the whole issue of reparations.
Mm-hmm.
What do you all think about the idea of reparations? One of the concerning things I read last week was someone suggesting that uh, African people, particularly non immigrant Africans in the Americas, can never be healed until there's justice. And I was curious about that statement because I wondered what or how they were defining justice and who disseminates justice. I hope they weren't saying that we can't be healed until the white supremacist system becomes just, because if that's the case, I think we're done. But
But because that won't ever happen unless we become healed. It
what'd you
is
say?
our
Say
healing.
it again.
It,
Right.
it is our healing that will bring about the justice. It's
If
not justice
exactly,
that'll
it
bring
has
about our
nothing to
healing.
do with their reparations.
Yeah.
In fact, there's very little they can do to repair.
There's no way they can repay us for what they've gleaned from us. Uh,
So we have to heal and bring our own justice. Our
Ashe.
healing is our justice, as you suggest. Uh, joy is justice. Health is justice. Love is justice. All the things that we oftentimes poo-poo. Peace is tremendous justice. So if we can maintain our peace in this face of this insanity.
There was
I used to belong to a group called Riding for Reparations, and we would go on these bike rides. And basically, it was to raise awareness of the reparation movement. Um, and it wasn't really about the money, it was just about raising the awareness of like what we have contributed to this country and how this country has profited from our contributions. And that the country owes us a debt uh, that can never be repaid. Uh, but there should be some movement towards recognizing that debt. Yeah. I think that one of the things that happens with with some of the reparation movements, reparation programs, is they get focused on this financial allotment. Like, are we going to give every family $25,000 or $40,000 or $1 million? And there's no way that that giving the even if they gave all Black people in America $10 million, unless it changes the paradigm that money is the decider of what's right and good, then we've still lost. The battle is still lost.
It
Like,
won't be
it's the
just.
I
paradigm
will
that
say,
not just the money that we have to get back.
I will say we have some comments in the chat, and I do know I think William was trying to mute, so I'll try and be brief with my commentary. But as someone who grew up in Jersey City, which is a very segregated town, right? This whole concept of the tale of two cities, and seeing some of the impoverishment that wrecked my city, particularly in Black concentrated areas, I do think reparations is key. Now, I'm not saying that money is the key to everything, but again, right, leaning on that both and. I think that we would be able to access. Oh my God, this sounds so capitalist. A different type of joy if we're not focused on surviving, if we're not having to navigate like again food deserts or community violence or poor economic situations. If we had some of those reparations in place to stabilize things like that, then we could really focus on the joy. And this goes to a comment that's also in the chat. It says money is a tool, and it also led to a question. So I'm wondering if we can, after William's comment, address the question. I'll put it here. Jocelyn says, if we remain unhealed collectively, how would we integrate reparations? That is a big question.
and that
Reparations.
that slightly leads me to the point that I was going to make, which there was a conference yesterday that happened at the United Nations of ancestors of former enslaved peoples from British colonies. That happened yesterday, and some lords spoke that they didn't even know that their families owned slaves. And so part of reparations to me is accountability and finding recognition of what happened, an actual apology. And part of that healing is having folks actually acknowledge their role in what they did, and the fact that they have been able to succeed on the backs of enslaved people. And I know that when I get an apology for something that happens in my personal life, it helps in that healing process. And it would be nice to just have recognition of what occurred, of what happened, and the folks' roles in that.
Dr. Myers, you seem to be muted.
On mute, Nana Linda. I'm gonna put the question back up as well if you want to respond.
In response to the question that was asked, but also in response to William's point, I think that the idea that an apology would be satisfactory, it reminds me of the American Psychological Association, who apologized, and AB Sai kind of said, "Are you really serious? Because if you really are sorry, give up your control of certification of the graduate programs across this nation who have from its beginning totally ignored Africana psychology, totally ignored the mental health issues, people acknowledging African ancestry. Actually, you've done a really poor job on the mental health of your own people. So just stop. So apology to me is like, please, just I'm fine. You go ahead and take care of your folk, straighten them up, get them under control. We'll be good. But really speaking to the how the unhealed can integrate and utilize reparations. The unhealed can't. We will just if we remain unhealed collectively, how could we integrate reparations? We can't. That's the bottom line. We and the healing that we need is a healing where we go back and fetch the truth of who we really are. I saw a video last week about the fact that, now I might have mentioned this before, the DNA of non-immigrant Africans in the Americas is the oldest and shows markings older than any other human beings on the planet, including people in Africa, including Africans. Something about our DNA is such that it can really account for how we were able to survive 400 years in chattel enslavement without any human rights whatsoever, and come out the moral and spiritual leaders of this nation, fighting for rights and justice for everyone. That's the level of consciousness we have to get back to. And at that level of consciousness, we are healed. And it's that level of consciousness that is going to heal us. When we get out of this idea of always trying to defy the lie. What if it's a lie? Why are you defying it? To defy it in its own right says you have to do what? Put your time and attention on it. You have some feelings about it. Let the lie go. I started to curse more. It's a lie, okay? Let it go. Turn your attention to the truth. Embrace the truth. Forget the lie, embrace the truth. Hopefully you're awake enough now that you can see this is a really, really, really deep and serious lie that has been from the beginning. Now let's turn our mind to that which is true and just and righteous, that which is the embodiment of Ma'at that our ancestors embraced, and that in itself will be healing. That's what's going to heal us, not fighting some insanity. Learn to not care about what crazy people think, okay? They're crazy. Don't worry about it. Let them go off, do their crazy thing. Try to get out of the way. Don't get any of it on you. And if they come for you, protect yourself. In fact, if you want to spend your time doing something productive, think about how you are going to protect yourself when and if they do come for you. Mm-hmm. That would be healing. But in terms of reparations, if we're talking about creating free education, good education, quality education that it's geared toward the educational needs and learning styles of our children, that would be reparations. As you speak to the impoverished communities, I don't want you to continue to give food pantries. Give me means to create the food. Give me means to produce all that I need for my thriving and the thriving of my future generations. But most times people think about reparations as money. Well, first of all, we know the dollar's worth nothing. In fact, the only thing keeping it going is our faith and our belief in it. And now our leaders kind of let that be smacked down. And now everybody who used to be our friend is organizing against the U.S. for their own safety and protection. So it's the wild, wild west again. And it's always been the wild, wild west. And wake up and see who you really are. Embrace your ancestry, the mothers and fathers of all human culture and civilization. And from there, you will be healed, because from there, you will be tied into that spiritual aspect of being, which is its essence. that never dies. So I will quit my lecture now.
Oh, we love it. We receive it. I think, and also, Nana Linda, when we have this conversation of reparations early on, like a few years ago, and Cobra was doing their whole petitioning in California, and I was able to. I didn't have anything to do with it, but I did do some graphics to get the message out, and I just felt so empowered. But for me, I'm thinking about it from someone who is like right a scholar of ABC. I have that consciousness, not to say I know everything, but I'm on my path. So I'm thinking about what would I do as someone who is has this African ideology with that kind of money. Like I'm an organizer at heart. So what would that look like, right? As far as community outreach and like you said, building institutions. Imagine what ABSI could do if we had more money. Like not to say, okay, maybe I'm a little bit of a capitalist. But anyway, we have another question in the chat from Instagram. What does justice look like? So I'm wondering if anyone wants to tackle that.
Yeah, I think we have a misconception about what justice is, and we think of justice as holding people accountable or punishing people when they do wrong, and that's not justice. Justice really means bringing things back into alignment with to make them as they should be. That's justice. You know, it goes back to the concept of ma'at, and ma'at is about um, making things right that were making things that have gotten out of alignment with their true purpose and bringing them back into alignment. Justice is alignment. Like if you think about the concept of like justifying the print on a page, it doesn't say you can't print outside of that margin. It tells you where the margins are. That's all it does. It tells you where the margins are. And if you want to justify the print within the margins, you know where the margins are, and you stay within that margin. Okay. And justice in society is like that as well. We can set boundaries in society, and we can know when people are acting outside of those boundaries. Justice is bringing them back to within the boundaries of the way things ought to be.
I so agree. And I think I'd add to that, you won't know what justice is unless you've cultivated the ability to distinguish between right and wrong. In this social context, we have totally lost the ability, much less cultivated it, to distinguish between right and wrong. Therefore, we have people in leadership saying what's absolutely wrong as though it's right, and saying things that are absolutely right as though they're wrong. And that confuses people en masse in a social context where the lies keep being repeated. People begin to internalize and believe them. So I think one of the things that's required in terms of understanding and knowing what justice is cultivating the ability to distinguish between right and wrong. Is it true? Is it just? Is it righteous? Those things kind of go to.
Is it creating what we want to create?
I don't know. I have to narrow those boundaries a bit, because what's been created today, that's what they wanted to create. They went to great lengths. This is what they wanted. What's been created was wanted by someone, and they spent a lot of time creating it. So it's not just what you want to create.
Well, not just what you want to
based
create.
on truth, justice.
What we want to create. Next thing, what we try to create needs to be in alignment with the natural order.
Yes, and as our master sage Jehudi said in the beginning, we have to cultivate the ability to distinguish between the real and the unreal. And we've been socialized to believe that money and things and acquisition of objects is what's real and what's right and what makes us excellent. Indeed, the opposite may be true. What is real is being in tune with the spiritual aspect of being, in touch with the netter, which is energy, which is the totality, and learning to be in harmony and in alignment and in flow with that source. And that's what we've been trying to put forth and teach here at Creating Zola Mondays. What is that, and how does one do that? It's so critical, because the other thing we've been up to, or been forced to be up to, or been told we ought to be up to, It's dying. It's a painful, ugly death.
Sure. Someone asked, and I already answered this, but just to share the enthusiasm that we're receiving from some of the conversation we're having. Someone said, "Will we all be at a convention? They would love to meet us." So, shameless plug. We'll be doing Creating Zola Mondays and AB Side Talks. Pull up, slow key, and meet and greet. I'm so excited.
Absolutely, we'll be there, and
We
we'd
will
love
all
to.
be at convention, and we would love for you to come up and introduce yourself to us.
And I'm curious how we can how we as a people can foster that like spiritual wealth within ourselves.
Mm. Well, I think you have to, one step, and there are many, many ways. Almost all the wisdom traditions teach the same thing in different ways from cultural vantage points. But I think the first step is self knowledge and self awareness, and get in tune and attaching, critically self reflect. Who am I? And if I am, how I look, where I live, my income, my position, my title, the money I make, the kind of car I drive, where I live. No, 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 no. That's who you've been taught to believe you are. Because if you believe that's who you are, other people outside of you can control that. And therefore, your sense of identity and worth will be in constant flex up and down. I get promoted. Yay. I'm laid off. Oh, suicidal. No, no, no. Who you are is an expression of a creative life force whose nature is love, supreme being, Holy Spirit. There are many names by which it's known. That's who you really are. And knowing that's who you really are by going within and discarding all that garbage you've been led to believe you are and tuning into the righteous being who you really are, you then begin to feel like, I am fearless. I have courage. I have to speak the truth. I have to stand for justice. I am here to do that. That is my purpose. However, if it's expressed through the arts, through science, through philosophy, through music, whatever, do that to the best of your ability, and that will not only heal you but everybody else who comes into contact. So that's a brief brief answer.
And to keep in mind that who you are is not what you've done. It's not what you have become. It's in reality, much of it is who did I come from, and what am I becoming?
I love that line, Dr. Linder. That yeah.
What line was that you loved?
The who am I? Who do I come from, and who am I becoming?
Mm-hmm. So another way I'm thinking about that is I would not say, so who I come from is the divine infinite. How I am becoming is the divine infinite. So I think there's a part of who I am that is seen in what I do because I'm here representing the divine infinite. And if I'm here representing the divine infinite, that ought to be seen in what I do. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. It speaks to the concept of the Sankofa to me.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. I think also I'm thinking about the last few creatings on the Mondays we did where we had somatic exercises, and the question kind of remains the same of what practical tools can I use to raise my consciousness? What practical tools can I use to safeguard myself during these chaotic times? And I'm starting to learn at this big age. It's like I'm 29, I just turned 29, so I'm still a baby. But it's like a switch went off when I turned 29. And it's like things don't have to be as hard as I was making them or perceiving them. Like shit is hard, part of my language, but right, my paradigm, the way that I'm perceiving it can shift. And so I think that while I try to gain more consciousness, I'm learning that I have all the answers, right? The body keeps the score is so popular in my grandmother's hands. I just have to know how to read myself and read right my bodily sensations that tells me this is right or this is not right. So I'm trying to tune more into that, and the way that I'm doing that is through breath work, meditation, reconnected with nature, sitting at the feet of my elders and my scholarships. And so I think that right, the more in tune we can get with ourselves and who we are and whose we are, the easier it can be to navigate all these different, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Trials. So yeah, I don't know why I said that, but I just spurred the thought in me.
Well, I think it's true. That answer is in you.
It
Because we've
is.
been taught to look out there for the answer. Oh, you tell me the answer. I read this book, I read that book. Well, that's all good. And if it helps you, just please continue to do that. But at the end of the day, as my brilliant scholar friend says, um, there's knowing and then there's knowing. And there's an experiential, it's not just intellectual, although some people may hear it as intellectual. It's not just the knowing we're interested in has to be heartfelt. You got to feel it in your bones, in your body, in your breath, in your being, because that's when you really know. And that's when you really have peace and your blood pressure will go down and you can breathe and feel free. So I think the reason it's seen as complicated is because it's been made complicated because we have not been socialized to cultivate the ability to distinguish between the real and the unreal, nor have we been socialized to cultivate the ability to distinguish between right and wrong. In fact, we've been told, follow your gut. No, don't do that. Well, your body's trying to tell you something, maybe, or you're in this environment and you feel such joy. Oh, but this is not where it's supposed to be, feeling this joy. So that must be, we're confused. We've been socialized to be confused. But we're coming into a space and time where the cosmos aligns. All the stars, all the cosmos has aligned to open up and make it possible for us to look within and be in harmony and in balance and in alignment. And so this is a good time to be here. And part of the reason we're seeing such chaos and decline is as an opportunity for us to grow and become more enlightened and awakened.
And we're always doing that. I mean, I was, Denisha's age almost a half a century ago. Um, but but I realize that I'm still becoming, um, and still growing and still learning and still becoming whatever it is I am to become. But just because you're 29 doesn't mean that you're not also doing what I'm doing, because you are becoming, now, but you're also shaping your becoming to pass on to the next generation. You know, I'm more elder than you, but you are more elder than the people who are coming along behind you. There are people that will be looking up to you and learning from you, and in a sense, idolizing you, much the way we idolize Dr. Myers. It's like,
Oh, that's so sweet of you. But I was thinking when you said that, Donisha, elder doesn't have to be age related, not age related, not chronological age related. There's a knowing you have, or at least there's a knowing I had long before I got old. And the twists and turns that you go through, knowing more and more, deeper and fuller, are real. But there's a knowing you have that you had probably before you were born. You came with it. We all come with it. And so what we want to do is try to unbury that which we came with and come into full realization of it. And I know people who are chronologically old, but they're not wise. They're not compassionate. They're not loving. They're not anything that we would think people ought to be who are wise. So chronology is interesting. It's a good thing. I'm so happy for every one of those years that I've been blessed to live. But at the same time, I don't want young people to disregard what they come with. Mm-hmm.
Asha. Yeah, I had a reading with Mama Huberta, who is a priestess, and she told me that like I have an old soul, right? And we love throwing that around. You have an old soul, but to hear it from someone who does divination, has that direct line to the ancestors, that made me feel really assured, because I did have a lot of
Affirmed.
questions when I was younger, and I'm like, why am I thinking stuff like this? Like, what the hell? Like, why am I having this existential crisis and I'm so young? But I vaguely remember just questioning, right, why life was this way, or what is the purpose of being human? Like, it was really crazy stuff. But yeah, I appreciate that and I received that, and I will definitely walk in that. But yeah, oh, I told so I do poetry, and in the streets they call me Blue, BLE, like the French. So I told Evan the other day that he could start calling me Nana Blue.
That's your rap name.
I'll take my eldership. I'm ready.
That's your rap name. Nana Blue.
Mm. Well, it's so funny because all of us come here with a purpose and talents and gifts. And you're talking about someone who's a diviner. You're probably a diviner too. We all can divine. We could, if we choose. If we choose, that's a skill or a talent or a gift. Because we all came with the gift. It may not be what our purpose is, but we all have the gift to project thoughts, to read people, to do all kinds of powerful spiritual stuff that we've been told is, oh, that's metaphysical. Oh, that's not important. Well, okay. If that's what you want to think, go right ahead. Because I have a different idea. So
Speaking of the metaphysical and of knowing, um, the times that I know that I'm doing my purpose are when I am involved in libations and I'm getting to lead libations or just being able to experience libations and being able to be that conduit and connection between those that have already gone on, those that are here, and those that are to come, and feeling that full circle of life. And I think that is one of the most fulfilling parts of our circles that we do is the libations part and being able to connect to spirit in a very meditative way. That it takes a healing activity, and we start our circles with that.
Yeah, William does a really beautiful meditation, like something to be rivaled. I often feel uncomfortable doing libations. Not that I can't venerate my or honor my ancestors, but I also feel like I usually feel like that is something that should be reserved for the elders, right? They have this knowledge, this wisdom that comes with that age. But like you said, it's not mutually exclusive, Linda. So I'm gonna try and practice, doing libations more and feeling more comfortable with that. And then we also do this pledge called the Virtues of Maya, and it is so beautiful. It's like a call and response, and then you just hear a bunch of Black people, standing on business, like saying that I'm going to make sure that I am connected to this moral and spiritual system that my ancestors used in ancient Kemet, and I'm going to carry this forward to guide my steps. So, yeah, another shameless plug. Sawubona Healing Circle 3 times a week.
well,
7
when William was talking about doing libations, I think for me, you are just the vessel. So you have opened up the spirit, and it's not you talking. It's you being talked. Let me say it that way. You're being
It's so
talked.
interesting that you say that because, like right now, I get to convene with one of my great grandmothers who was a healer and who is coming channeling through me during that period. And it's not you're correct. It is not me. I'm just the vessel of the message.
Yes, it's a beautiful thing. And what's her name?
Her name was Cleo.
Thank you, Cleo. Welcome. I'm almost out of battery. So if I click off, it's because my battery went. But we do have, 5 more minutes? I'm going to step out and see if I can find a cable, and I will be back.
All right.
One of the things that I think gets enacted when you're doing libations is, in a way, it's transcendent. It's connecting the past not only to the present, but actually to the future as well. And I think we don't think about it enough, and other people don't think about the whole notion of us becoming transcendent beings. And in a sense, that's one way of enacting that capacity for transcendence, for taking um, what happened in the ancients and recognizing its presence in the now, and transferring that presence into the future. Um, I think it's a much more important act than people realize when we're actually doing it. We sort of go through the motions and kind of, you know, say the words you're supposed to say and say the responses you're supposed to say, and don't think about the transcendent nature of that activity.
And we get to connect with the creator, and we get to also invoke the elements, right? Air, earth, fire, water, and we bring those together, and it's a very spiritual, very transcendent experience when we
A
bring those
lot of
elements
people recognize it as a connection to our past,
together.
but don't think about the connection of the past to the present and to the future.
Right.
The totality.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've seen, to your point, Dr. Linda, I've seen people do libations and it's like they're just, they're reading off a script and there's no feeling in it. And it's like, Ashe, Ashe. And I'm just like, oh, like that just turns me off so much because you are sitting at the precipice of such a powerful moment when you're doing libation, like you said, to call forward the strength that you might need in the days to come, in the weeks to come, and taking that strength from the past and from the challenges that your family and your lineage has overcome. So I love that emphasis on the future.
Well, honestly, I myself, just saw it as kind of a perfunctory thing that we go through. Like when I was growing up, we'd say the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, or we get on our knees and say the Lord's Prayer. But it was just words that you say, and it's just like you have to say this, and then it's somehow magically supposed to make things better for you. And you know, there is, in a sense, magic in it. You know, um, but it's not just perfunctory. Uh, it
Do you have?
symbolizes the reality that we're trying to get in touch with. Yes, yes, Dr. Myers.
No, I was just going to say, if you feel comfortable, William, would you kind of introduce our audience to a brief libation?
Sure. Yeah, I could do that.
And we'll close with that.
That's lovely.
So I have my water actually right here because water is the memory of our ancestors in this plane of existence. I have air right here because air will carry their names here and back in this realm of existence. And then I have fire. Fire will light their path here, and fire will light their path home. And then I have earth right in front of me. And I'm going to put the memory of our ancestors into this representation of earth so that they can be here with us. And I want to give praise and honor and thanks to the creator. I want to give praise and honor and thanks to our earliest ancestors. I want to give praise and honor and thanks to our ancestors that we can remember by name and are closer to us. And we say Ashe when we honor our ancestors. And so I want to honor my ancestor, Cleo Brown.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Ida Bell Hickson, my grandmother.
Ashe.
Sure.
Faye Nora Brown James, then Harold Franklin James, my parents.
Ashe.
Hey.
Ashe.
William Davis and Eddie Davis, my grandparents.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Ramir Morris, my little cousin.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Nina and Harry Brown.
Ashe.
And my mother, Eddie Mae Linder.
Ashe.
Eiley and Marina James.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Dr. Derek and Fatati Wilson are transition president-elect.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Are there folks in the chat that have ancestors that they want to honor? We can read their name, give them life in this plane right now.
I'll keep an eye on the chat, but I'll bring forward one of my beloved uncles, Mark Anthony Stevens.
Ashe. I want to bring forward my brother, Bonjay Parham.
Ashe.
I'm thinking of Dr. John Henrik Clark and Derek Bell and Nzinga Warfield Coppock, and I could go on and on.
Ashe.
Ashe.
We have Dr. Lex, who wants to call the name of her dear father, Kevin Crenshaw. Ashe.
Ashe.
Paula Parilla. Sorry if I said that wrong.
Ashe.
Ashe. We have William Grant and William Brown. Ashe.
Ashe.
Ashe. We probably are going to have to close this off. I hate to interrupt it, but we are running over time, and I know people do need to move on, but they can't move on because we'll be with you.
Ashe.
And just as we close out, and just as we feel our ancestors here with us, if we could just hug ourselves real quick and just feel the love and the embrace and the honor and the pride and the dreams that our ancestors have for us, that our ascendants have for us and will have for us. And I just want you to sit in that embrace as the day goes on in the love of your people.
Ashe. Wait, two more really quickly. Susie and Lynette Scott. Ashe. And Walter and Amy Glover. Silas Jenkins Jr. Ashe.
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 Ashe. Thank you so much, Dr. Parham, and thank you, listeners, for being with us today. And know you are blessed and protected, and all that you need, you have. Ashe.
Ashe. Thanks,
Until
y'all.
the next time.